Hey, what's up everybody? Onepeg here. Hi, how are you? Sorry this video wasn't up sooner. My internet was out for maintenance for most of the day, but, better late than never. Anyway, on to the patch notes. Oh, before we get into the patch notes, I should say, for this video, the two biggest things is that we have an end to the season, which is May 31st, and we have a wipe date, which is the 7th of June. Instead of having a 2-week lag, we now only have a 1-week lag, which is significantly better, I think. I would really like to see them kind of like end the season and then start the new wipe kind of like the day after. I think that would be pretty cool. But, maybe they need a little cooldown time to kind of revisit things. Doesn't always hurt. As of right now, you can see that the game is in maintenance. The servers are currently down. So I don't have the aftermath for a couple of these bullet points, which I would typically have liked to have done, but that's okay. Fix several issues that could cause client crashes, stiletto dagger not dealing damage, melee attacks sometimes wouldn't deal damage to targets. The FSR option was temporarily disabled for testing purposes. The attribute bonus ratio is now displayed on tooltips. So now you can see when you put on a piece of gear what it's going to modify the attribute bonus by. And I think that's a really nice and important piece. The training dummy has been reworked based on the character. So this, again, is pretty important. The training dummy wasn't ever really giving any realistic information in terms of the numbers it was throwing out. We were never really certain because it had different resistances, base resistances to what people had. So this being modified, I think, is a good thing. The inventory system has been completely refactored. Items other than equipment will no longer have their loot state changed when looted from enemies. So instead of what was happening where people were Q-sniping their friends with a belly full of treasure, and then you would kind of kill the quote-unquote enemy, loot all the treasure, and then leave the dungeon, because that made sense. So now it's only equipment, stuff that you're wearing, and weapons. Gear score will now appear wherever it can be displayed. So again, probably on each item in the tooltip somewhere. In-game chat has been added, so that can only go great, I'm sure. A whisper feature has been added to chat as well. We saw this, we tested it before. Whisper feature being in chat is a good thing. Leaderboards now display end times and rewards. We now know, or will know, what the rewards will be for the end of the leaderboard. Dungeon recovery service has been added to Goblin Merchant. Now we have insurance. The insurance system that was on the player test servers that showed for whatever ended up going to the void that was yours would automatically come back, and it would be something that you could buy back from the Goblin as long as you had the gold. This will be a much more beneficial, or will be a very beneficial thing for people playing that don't have a whole lot of time, for instance, but are hoping for the quality of life. I think this is a good change. I know there's a lot of people that think gear is abundant and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sure, yeah, whatever. But those are the hardcore guys. I'm looking at the people that don't play all that often. This is something that people that don't play all that often will benefit from a great deal. And I think that that's important. Now you can expand your stash further, and it's a little cheaper. More stash tabs, not a bad thing. A little bit cheaper, also not a bad thing. The final weekly quest has been added. So we will have an end to the quest chains. We can see what that's going to look like. Now, SDF goes on to say in the developer comments, for this hotfix, we want to round out the current season on a strong note with some important quality of life and critical changes that we believe will reward current players and lay the groundwork for the future. I agree. I think that the majority of these changes are good for quality of life. This hotfix adds the rewards for the leaderboards along with some account-bound cosmetic rewards for the quests. This season's leaderboard will be active until May 31st. Afterward, we will have a 1-week preseason period and prep for the next season, which will commence on June 7th. We have completely overhauled the inventory system to be more robust for future upgrades. Again, we're not exactly sure what this means, but once we are able to get in the game, I'll make a follow-up video and kind of do the highlights. Due to the scale of this refactoring, we foresee inventory bugs, which we want to stomp out in time for next season. We've also implemented in-game chat in the dungeon recovery system to make it a little easier to communicate and make dying in the game less punishing. Now, half an hour ago, they said that they had to take the servers down to do an extended maintenance, whatever, and they would let us know when they would be back up. But as of right now, we don't really have an ETA on when exactly that's going to be. Now, of course, they're 13 hours ahead of the time zone that I'm in, so that makes them working overnight, and it's 7 a.m. In Korea at the moment, and they're still there trying to make sure that things go well. So hopefully, at some point in the near future, that'll be up, and we'll be able to begin our dark and darker final grind to Demigod. Now, of course, the 10-ton elephant in the room is that there still is no word on whether we're going to see Druid anytime soon. And even though they do have it playable on the player test realm, it clearly needed a whole bunch of stuff in order to make it something that seemed really viable. Super survivable, pretty good for healing support, overwhelmingly good for healing support, but had no real offensive capability whatsoever. That and some of the other things that they were planning on reworking hopefully are able to get into this game prior to the next season beginning, because I'd like to see something that's really well fleshed out for this next season. I think we're kind of owed that. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this one. Thanks so much for coming and checking it out. I'll be sure to do a follow-up video with everything that's in the game as soon as I'm able to get in there and actually do some testing. But in the meantime, if you want to come check out a stream, I'm going to start my push for Demigod probably tomorrow morning first thing over at twitch.tv/Onepeg. Otherwise, if you'd be kind enough to sub the channel here, if you end up enjoying the content, I would very, very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming and checking it out and lending me your eyeballs, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.